So while we're waiting for the green light, did you guys build your sets yet? Yeah, you did? Okay. So have you found any that keep breaking? Because I did. Derek, where are you saying? What was the model you said kept breaking? Oh, this one. Oh, right? Yeah. Shooting things, that's always fun. Yeah. You know, I hope you guys watch the videos about setting it up because I had to several times. I was very unsure about this one. This thing, I was very unsure about that. Yeah. And, you know, the other thing I had trouble with was this sand thing right here. Watch the video and look at the pictures carefully because it really does line up with the lines. And if it doesn't, it's wrong. So make sure it lines up. I have to go back to the building instructions a couple times. Anyway, I'm sorry, Derek, David, we're ready? Okay. Just saw T walk in. We're going to wait 5 more minutes until they sit down. Okay, sorry. Continue on, talk.
They're just like admiring them, like, really good.
Okay, I think we're all here now. Welcome, you guys. Okay, just real quick. How many of you guys were here last season? Can you raise your hand so I can just see you versus return me? Very good. Okay, so you guys know me, right? You see me before? Hopefully? Okay. So here's the thing. Thank you. You put your hands down. Don't be afraid of saying hi to me. Okay? I really like it. Normally I'm running around and I'm super busy. But props to you if you're brave enough to come up and say hi to me and have a conversation. That is one of the things I think this program is so good for you guys, is to learn how to speak in an uncomfortable situation. And I know I'm in an uncomfortable situation because you don't know me. I don't work with you on the daily, but don't be afraid. Even if you're brand new, come up and say hi when you see me, because I'll be at a few events this year. Yeah, we all will. Can you guys just, all of my FLO planners, can you just raise your hands? So turn around, take a look at all these people. Raise your hands, FLO planners, alumni, raise your hands. Okay? So all these people, yeah. All these people, we all work together, and Mr. Shoka. All these people, we all work together to put the season on. So you'll see us at quite a few events, and coaches, I send out emails a lot. If you don't get my emails, then you need to let me know. But I'm the Luana that sends out the emails. Okay, Miss Sarah Iverson, right back there. She is the money person, coaches. So any issues, you need an invoice, you want to check if your payment's gone through, whatever, that's Miss Iverson, Miss Sarah Iverson. Miss Maria Tomei in the back, she's the one that is in charge of the qualifying tournaments. So placement into tournaments, those kinds of questions will go to her. And then I field a lot of other questions and I dial in and Mr. Derek, he's the head ref. Mr. Chris and Mr. Mark Our referees also, they all work together in the head ref position. But Mr. Derek answers most of the game questions, okay? And Mr. David back there, he is our judge advisor, okay? So just put names to faces. All right, let's get started. So one more time, my name is Miss Vivera, it's Miss Luana, you can call me Miss Luana. And I am one of the First Legal League Hawaii partners, one of. I am not the only one, okay? There's several of us, and I just want to welcome you guys all to this Unearthed season. So this year, you're not just robotic teams, right? You guys are going to be explorers, historians, and innovators all at the same time with the theme. You're about to embark on an incredible journey to uncover the past to help shape the future, right? We're uncovering the past to help shape the future. Think about it. Every day, archaeologists and scientists are digging into the earth, unearthing ancient secrets and incredible discoveries. These findings tell us stories, right? What they find will tell us stories about the people who came before us. And not just the people like from yesterday before us, but from way back, right? So it tells us how they lived, how they created things, how they solved problems, and during this season, it's kind of your guys' job to kind of bridge that gap. We're going from the past to the present to the future, okay? So in this season, you're gonna use your STEM skills and teamwork to dig deeper than ever before. This isn't just about the Lego bricks and the code, I know. So typically, I'm a referee. That's how I started off in this program. And that's my favorite part, the Lego and the bricks and the code. But that's just part, 1/4 of what you guys do, right? You have the project, you have the core values, you have the design process going into your robot, okay? So this year we're going to work together, we're going to solve real-world problems, and we're going to do it by practicing our gracious professionalism. Those are two big words. Have you guys been introduced to gracious professionalism? Yeah? Yeah? Can somebody explain to me real quick what that is? Brave souls. Okay, I'm going to go with you. Just, what do you think?
It's winning and losing and not bragging about it or feeling so also super sad about it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Can anybody add on to that thought about gracious professionalism? Yeah? What do we think? Wait, hold on. Go on to her. Sorry. I'm gonna come over here. Adding on to her thoughts.
In what she said, gracious professionalism is also being kind and including everyone and doing your best and feeling proud no matter what the outcome is.
Very good. Very good. Nice. So that's one of the first programs. Pretty much ethos is gracious professionalism, right? We work together, have a positive outcome. All right. All right. So here we go. We're gonna get ready. We're gonna grab our gear, our pack, our magnifying glass, and we're gonna dig into this season. It's time to find inspiration in the past and use it to build a brighter future. I personally can't wait to see what you guys all bring. Okay. We're gonna watch a short video. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but let's watch it together.
These guides provide step-by-step guidance for completing the challenge.
First, the League Challenge teams also receive a robot training notebook. It's also available on the website in a digital format alongside other helpful resources.
In addition to the guidebooks, there are many other helpful resources on our website.
As a First League participant, you are part of a global community with more than hundreds of thousands in more than 100 countries all around the globe. Let's check in with the 2025 Champions Award-winning team, Sessi Heroes from Brazil, who will tell you much more about what to expect this season.
Hello, First League teams from around the world. We are the team
Sessi Heroes
from Juiz, Brazil. We are so excited to be part of this incredible journey with all of you as we explore the unearthed season. It's going to be an adventure filled with discovery, creative, and teamwork.
And one of the most exciting parts of this season is the innovation project. It's your chance to think like real problem solvers. And here's the challenge. Identify a problem faced by the archaeologists and come up with a solution to help them with their work.
So, how do you get started? Here are some tips that have helped us in the past.
First, work together to choose a problem that really inspires you. The more passionate your team feels about the issue, the more creative your ideas will be. Secondly, do your research. Review the project parts in the engineering notebook and try to connect with experts online or in person to learn more about the challenges they face.
And most importantly, have fun and support each other. The best ideas come from great teamwork and collaboration. We can't wait to see all the amazing projects you come up with this season.
Good luck, teams! And remember to unearth your creative and passion. You can save yours alone.
Thank you, says Heroes. We can't wait to see what your team discovers this season. And we can't wait to hear from you. Please share your journey on social media using hashtag #Unearth. And remember to tag First League so we can share all your journeys and your discoveries with the whole community.
Hello, First Lego League community. I'm Chris Moore, CEO of First. Welcome to a brand new season of STEM exploration, creativity, and problem solving with this year's exciting challenge, Unearth. You and more than 600,000 First Lego League participants around the world will use science, technology, engineering, math, and teamwork to dig deep and help uncover the future. Maybe you're curious about a career in archaeology, dreaming up the next big innovation, or learning to code with confidence. Whatever your passion, you're in the right place, and we're so glad you're here. We can't wait to see what you unearth during the First Age season. Good luck to all First Lego League teams.
Hello, First Lego League community. Welcome to Unearthed, part of the First Age season presented by Qualcomm. I'm Anya Shivlin, Vice President of Engineering at Qualcomm Technologies Incorporated. And for 40 years, Qualcomm has made its mark in history by revolutionizing wireless technology, connectivity, the power of artificial intelligence, and more. Because of these advancements, archaeologists today are able to dig deeper, uncover connections to our past, and communicate their findings near and far, from ground-penetrating radars to deciphering ancient scrolls. Are you ready to dig into the past this season? We can't wait to see what you'll do with what you uncover. It's time to make your mark. Good luck.
And as we say in First League, teamwork makes the dream work.
Remember, every challenge is an opportunity to learn, grow, and shine together. Now let's dig in.
First Lego League.
All right. Okay. So now my robotics enthusiasts, let's jump in and learn more about the theme of this year. Join me in welcoming Kapaliku Maile, who is the current Education Programs Manager at the Bishop Museum and has worked in the museum field for over a decade. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Cultural Anthropology from Hawaii Pacific University and postgraduate studies in Pacific Island Studies at the University of Hawaii. In his work at the Bishop Museum, he engages learners of all ages and backgrounds in sharing what makes Hawaii one of the most special places in the world. Hawaiian culture, language, and community are his biggest motivators. Let's give Kapaliku Maile a warm FLL welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
I'm used to talking without a mic, so if I don't need the mic, I might just shift away from it. But how are you folks hearing me in the back? Who would prefer me on the mic? See, he's the ringmaster. All right, so once again, good morning, folks. Welcome, students, parents, coaches, teachers, educators, community members. I'm really honored to be here. I'm glad to have been asked to be a speaker for today to help inspire you folks about how the season is going to be starting. For the time being, I might stick a little bit closer to the computer just because my phone is doing funny things. So those of you who are used to dealing with technology know technology works until you need it. But in terms of the technology that we're going to be talking about today, I want to just share one brief exercise before we get started. And that is something that brings us back to the idea of not only the bricks you're going to be using, not only the code you're going to be developing, not only the teams that you're going to be part of, but also you. I'm going to ask everybody who's been sitting down here in the chairs to please stand up. Okay. And as you can tell, you don't have anything in your hands for now. In Hawaiian, we have this word kino. Do you guys know the word kino? Okay, who knows kino? Raise your hand. Okay, what does kino mean in English? That's kilo with an L-O, but kino is a different word. I saw maybe another hand that knew it. Makua? That's right, your kino is your body. And your bodies are just as important to all this process as your brains, right? They're not separate. So, we're going to do a quick stretch. Navigating a canoe that our ancestors have been doing for the past 1,000 years or so. We're going to stretch out as if we're stretching to the sun, right? All the way up. Try to get your elbows up, closer to your ears. Imagine that the sun is at midday and we're stretching to it. And we're going to bring our arms down from the sun and we're going to make the halavai, which is the horizon line, right? That's the line that separates the sky and the ocean, right? That's what we observe with our eyes, right? The kilo, we observe it, right? And now, we're going to quickly take a dip into the water. So very carefully, put on the toes. If I hear any of you young ones saying it's hard to touch your toes, I just say stretch. Now, if we're diving in the water, we can't stay in too long, so we need to come back up. Then come back up, take a deep breath through your nose, and out your mouth. And we'll do it 2 more times. And last time. Okay, good job. Now you can sit. So, thank you for that. How many of you folks feel like you've stretched out a little bit better now? Maybe a little bit, yeah? Some of them walk are all like, yeah, we need to stretch. But, so, as important as it is to feed your mind with ideas, with concepts, with your imaginations, it's also important that we feed our body and our soul, yeah? So we'll be talking a little bit about those kind of things. But, my short keynote for you folks today, our future lives in our past. And this is just part of kicking off your folks' season. So again, welcome to everybody. We're so glad that you're here. This is part of the theme as I understand it for you folks for this season, right? Every artifact we uncover holds a story. Each tool, each innovation, each work of art connects us to the people and ideas that came before us. So you folks, using STEM skills and teamwork, will dig deeper. Now that video gives us a lot of context, and that video also connects you folks in the lead to people all around the world. There was folks speaking to you from Brazil, from Ireland, from many other parts of the world. And so when we think about it, you folks are in what part of the world? Hawaii, right? Yeah, we're in Hawaii. And Hawaii is very, very far away from most other parts of the world, even the continental United States. So that also means that the place that you're doing this in is very unique, and it has its own history, its own culture, and it has you, and that's really important. Now, part of the theme for this year, or this season for you folks, is this idea of archaeology. Before signing up for this, who knew about archaeology? A few of us? Okay. So, if you had to explain what archaeology meant, look at that, and you were telling somebody for the first time, what would you say?
Archaeology is the study of artifacts and ancient historical items such as engravings,
So you gave us a time frame, you gave us the subject, and you're giving us a sense of the why. Now, the Society for American Archaeology defines this as exactly that, right? Through the past remains of humans, right? So we're not studying dinosaurs, that's paleontology, or fossils I should say. We're not studying things from outer space, we're studying people. And we're studying people like us through the past and through the things that they have left behind. Now, the physical remains part is really important. And so when we talk about digging, right, when we talk about unearthing, the idea is that through the history of our world, especially in places like Hawaii, there are layers of history, actual physical layers. So if you folks have ever seen a house get demolished and then rebuilt, that's a layer. So archaeologists look for those kinds of things, right? Now, when we think about ancient pottery, we might think about drawings or art in cave walls in places like France or Germany. Just imagine what the archaeologists 1,000 years from now are going to be looking at. Mostly iPhones. But another thing I wanted to introduce, even though it's not directly part of your theme, is this idea, anthropology. Now, has anybody heard this term before? And not the clothing store? Yeah? Okay, a few of us. So if you had to explain that term anthropology, this is what you get when you raise your hand. What would you tell somebody?
Anthropology is like studying more on the human side rather than main animals or mammals.
Very good. Exactly that. It has a lot to do with humans. Now, there are different kinds of anthropology. There are anthropologies to look at the way that human beings are connected to other mammals, like primates, right? There's anthropology that looks at different aspects of society. But anthropology takes a broad approach, and that's one of the things I wanted to introduce, because archaeology sometimes thinks it gives us the tools, it gives us the ideas. Anthropology helps to give us context. Have you heard that word before, context? Yeah? So if I gave you a picture, and I didn't tell you what the picture was, you have to look at the picture and try to figure out, with your own memories, your own experiences, what it is, right? And then if I ask you to explain that to somebody else, and you don't have the picture, you have to create context for them to understand what you're talking about, right? So I introduced these two disciplines because when it comes to Bishop Museum, where I work, or lots of other places, it is not just one or the other. You must bring together both. The tool sets, the skill sets, and the context are really important to understanding when we go back in time, what are we looking at? What are we looking for? And also, how do we interpret that information? So broadly, when we think about archaeology and anthropology, anthropology does end up being centered on humans, but it also brings us into the present. Archaeology really focuses on the past, but it also has to come to the present because it's us as present-day peoples that are interested in learning about the past, right? So it's connections, always connected. So my question for you folks, as we go through this presentation, is what can we learn from the past that will help us to improve the present and imagine the future, right? In Hawaiian, we have this idea, this word kupuna. Show of hands, who's heard kupuna before? Okay, a few of us. For those who haven't heard the word kupuna, kupuna is often translated as grandparents, but it can also be distant ancestors, yeah? There is a saying that often gets brought up today, which is, what would your kupuna think of you? That's true, so what would your ancestors think about you today? But there's also the sense of what would your descendants think about you as a kupuna? So plant that seed for a moment. This is a little bit about me. I'm not really going to read this slide. If you want to take a picture of it, you can, or you can find me at Bishop Museum where I work. I am somebody who's been very deeply interested and committed to Hawaii as my home, Hawaii as my culture, Hawaii as my language, and Hawaii as my community. So I come to you with some of that, but also from the perspective of somebody who's been involved in education at the museum, Nuona, for about 10 years, which might seem like a long time, but it's not really. And in that time, there's always been opportunities to learn. You might not think about Bishop Museum as a place that is heavily technological. It is now. But when we think about the kinds of work that gets done at the museum, it's done because Bishop Museum is a place that takes care of physical collections. So when we talk about collections, who can give me an example of one of the collections that the Bishop Museum has right now? Anybody? Okay.
Hawaiian Hall.
That is one of our display spaces. So what would you find in Hawaiian Hall?
Like different kinds of aspects of what Hawaiians use.
Okay, very good. Somebody else give me an example of what one of those things would be. Okay, this was our gracious professional earlier, yeah?
Papas and pohakus.
Very good, exactly that. So, tell everybody, what does pohaku mean?
Pohaku means. Pohaku means smashing the kalo with a rock that's been carved in a very different design.
Awesome. And papa is the word for the board that you smash the kalo on top, right? And so when you do that action with the stone and the board, you get a famous food of Hawaii, which is, say it louder. Boy. Very good. How many of you like boy? Okay, not your question, just asking. More for me. Now, those are great examples, right? And that collection that those objects live in, whether they're in the Hawaiian Hall or not, would be called ethnology, because that's how we organize the physical objects that belong to the Hawaiian people and many other peoples around the Pacific. The Bishop Museum has a cultural resources side and a natural sciences side. Cultural resources is mostly focused on people. Natural sciences is also focused on people, but it's through the lens of looking at the world around us. So we have bugs, we have snails, we have squids, we have fish, we have mammals, big and small, and reptiles from here all the way to Indonesia, represented in the museum's collections. We also look at plants. So when you think about a museum, how many folks have been to this particular building? Almost all of you, maybe? Yeah? And if not, come visit. But this is just one place where we can show those things. There are over 20 million specimens and objects that aren't on display. And that's just to give you a sense of the kinds of things you can find at one museum that studies the past to inform our present and imagine our future. But the museum is founded because of one person in particular, and that is this person, Bernice Pawahi Paki, who later becomes known as Bernice Pawahi Bishop. Yeah? So if you folks have heard that name, she is very much connected to another one of the very famous schools here at Oahu, Kamehameha School. She starts the school, her husband helps to start the school, and the museum is built on the grounds of that school. So if you haven't had a chance to hear that story and that connection, just like Iolani is connected to the Ali'i of that generation, so is Kamehameha School and Hawaii, right? Getting back to this idea of archaeology though, again, like I mentioned, the collections of the museum fall into categories, yeah? So when we think about archaeology, it is many, many, many physical things, but it's also the information, the data that we collect about it. That could be how big something is, how much it weighs, what kinds of colors or materials it has, where it's found especially, and then all the different kinds of papers and other information that talk about it, right? So when we think about records, we're looking not only at the physical thing, but any kind of research or interpretation that's been done about that thing, right? Not only the material, but the context around the material. Okay. I'm asking a lot of questions because I want to make sure you guys are all staying awake. But also thinking about this idea of how archaeology, which might not seem as connected to First Lego League, can be very much connected to the work you folks are about to jump into. What are these? Tools. What kind of tools? Let's get a little bit more specific. Let's talk to somebody I haven't talked to yet.
Fishing hook.
Very good, fishing hooks. How do we know it's a fishing hook? How do we know it's a fishing hook?
Is it shaped like one?
It's shaped like it? There's a lot of things shaped like hooks. How do we know for sure? How do we know for sure? Do we know? Okay, one of these grave souls in the red.
Looks like a fish hook.
Okay. But it's not sharp. And there's no hole to put the line on. So how do we know it's a fish hook? We're using context, right? We're using what we know about fish hooks. We're using the picture here. And we're thinking about what Kapaliku could possibly be talking about, right? And you're right. These are examples of fish hooks. But are they all different? What could this potentially show us is happening with fish hooks?
hooks are evolving?
That's a good word to use, evolving, right? All the fish hooks are evolving. What we're seeing is evidence of change in manufacture, and these are really important. That's evidence of your guys' change in manufacture right there. Which one of the ones wasn't working, according to Luana? If you point at the table, I don't know which one you're pointing at, you gotta tell me. The thrower. Okay, that one's not working. Are the rest of them working? Okay, that's evidence. So if I came in here into this room and you guys were all gone and nobody could tell me anything, I would have to look at this and try to understand what I'm seeing, right? Because those things are set up on the table, I might try it. And I might be able to get an understanding of what you guys were doing. But I need some context. Here are examples of what are called Macau Iwi or Macau. So everyone say Macau. Macau. Macau is the Hawaiian word for a fish hook. Iwi is the word for bone. Yeah? So these are bone hooks. And these are from Makale. Makale is on Hawaii Island. Anybody visiting or have family on Hawaii Island? Everybody's Oahu, okay? We have a few, okay? This is from Kau. So if you've ever been from Kau, Makale is out there. Now, you see the big pictures, it's pretty easy to see that fish hook shape, right? But look at the pictures next to it with the white and black pattern. That white and black pattern tells you the scale, how big the thing is. On that second part of the image, what do those letters mean at cm? Centimeters, which means how big is that fish hook? 2 centimeters. If you had to guess 2 centimeters using your fingers, how big is that? I think 3 centimeters is about an inch, right? Maybe a little bit less. So imagine, smaller than an inch. Do you think it was easy to find this? No. And in fact, when, I'm going to mention his name in a little bit because we're going to talk about his research. A very important and well-known researcher at the museum, an archaeologist and anthropologist, went shifting through sand and material in the layers at Makale. He found these with his crew. Very exciting, but also very small. So when we think about archaeology, it's not only unearthing things like the pyramids, right? It's definitely not Indiana Jones. It sometimes is these very small things that lead to very important information about our past, right? Now, I'm also going to ask you guys this question. Why would you make a fish hook so small? In the blue. Yep. Okay, that's a great idea. Great, so it gets into the fish's mouth and it doesn't cause damage to the fish. Yeah, that could be important. What's another reason for such a small hook? Different types of fish. This is for a tiny fish with a small mouth, right? Big hook, big mouth. Not necessarily big fish. So we're interpreting what we see based on also what we know. Who comes from families that do fishing? Anybody go fishing? Yeah? Okay, a lot of the water hooks maybe aren't quite as big as this or as this, right? These hooks are very small, but it tells us what our ancestors were doing here. Now, at the time that these were being excavated in Makale, which was in the 50s, there was nothing that could tell the researchers how old they were. Have you guys ever heard of radiocarbon before? Radiocarbon dating? Some of us have, yeah? A brief explanation is that all organic materials get bombarded with a type of radiation from the sun. And it degrades part of what makes up those organic materials, something called carbon-14. Around that time, scientists were able to determine a process by which you can measure that degradation, how the thing is wearing away essentially. And they use that to assume a certain age range, right? So using radiocarbon dating, you can approximately date how old something is when it was made, right? You can do this a lot with bones, so fossils, well, not necessarily fossils, but bones, certain kinds of organic materials. But these fish hooks could not be dated because they were still too fresh. But we still want to understand why they were there, give us a time range, because that gives us context. Dr. Yoshihiko Shinoto, who was an esteemed researcher at Bishop Museum, born in 1924 in Tokyo, and moves to Hawaii to work with Dr. Kenneth Emery, the very famous anthropologist, ended up working on this idea, this problem, this challenge, because he was obsessed with fish hooks. And he felt that fish hooks, along with other, sometimes very small cultural materials from Hawaii and the Pacific, held the key to understanding how long our ancestors had been here and how long they had been moving through other parts of the Pacific. So, real quick, where are we right now? Good, I heard two answers. I heard Hawaii and Guam. Good, you guys are paying attention. If you folks have ever heard about migration stories, from Hawaii, our ancestors come from a place that's often called Kahiki. If you switch the T, they switch the K and the T, you get Tahiti. You guys ever heard of Tahiti? Yeah. How far away is Tahiti from where we are right now? Any guesses? Give me a guess. 300 miles. Go higher. Anybody else? How many? 1,000 miles? Go higher. 50,000 miles. Too far. That's good though. That's good. So Tahiti is about 2,700 miles away from where we are right now. So not quite as far as 15. Definitely farther than 1,000 and 300, right? So Dr. Tsunono and many of the people who worked at the museum for a long time in that early period, before fancy computers existed, before the internet was a thing, they were trying to piece together ideas about how people from the Pacific got to the different places that they got to, how long we had been in a place, how we moved, how we changed. Those are all important for archaeology, especially looking at the distant past when we can't always ask those same people. Now, what you see here too is, this is him working in his house. That top right corner was one of the last pictures that he took before he passed in 2017, so he's been away for a little while. But what was really important is that he used the shape of fish hooks in Hawaii to determine, compared to how deep they were buried, the approximate age of when people were making certain kinds of fish hooks. How many of you guys drive? Okay, I shouldn't see any young ones yet. Okay. This is basically, for young folks who are not driving yet, this is like when different kinds of car models are made. You might hear your adults say, oh, I have a 2020 Ford, or I have a 2009 Honda, right? There's a timeline, and the designs do change. So Dr. Tsunono, not being able to date these things using radiocarbon analysis, looked at it from a stylistic perspective. He used the shape and where it was buried to determine how fish hooks evolved in Hawaii. And his classification system is still used today to look at the ways that Hawaiian fish hooks connect with other fish hooks from places like the Marquesas and Tahiti. Again, far, far away from us, but deeply, deeply connected. Another way of looking at our past is thinking about tools. Yeah? Fish hooks are a tool. This is the kind of tool that we use to carve wood. Let's practice this word. Everyone say ko'i. One more time, ko'i. So ko'i, or toki, or toki, those are the different words that we have in the Pacific, are one of the most important carving tools in our part of the world. You'll notice there's no metal. It's stone. Different kinds of stones. In our part of the world, we have basalt, which is the deep black stone. If you've ever been to Mauna Kea or Haleakala, there are very important and famous places where that stone could be found, and it would be worked down to make these kind of tools. One of the things that's really neat about stone tools is they don't rust. So if you have a stone tool and you keep it in good working condition, it can literally last 1,000 years. But when it comes to understanding these tools, we need a vocabulary. We need to build context to understand how these things are from one place to another. All the ones in that box there are at the museum. The ones to the left are from New Zealand. We're looking at style, and we're looking at change. The Hawaiian ones are older than these ones from New Zealand. We're connected to those folks as cousins. So how did those things change? Was it the material? Was it a need? Was the wood harder or softer? These are the kinds of things that archaeologists and anthropologists might be asking, and they go and look for information. But there's also folks in the community, like this gentleman, who take that same kind of information and apply it to cultural practice. His name is Tom Pico. He used to live on Hawaii Island, and he was known for being an expert in making these kinds of stone adzes. But he didn't make them with a grinder or with metal tools. He used old techniques, like taking a piece of stone, flaking the big piece, and then grinding it down so that it would get that shape. That kind of knowledge is still important for us today because it tells us about process, right? Students, how many folks have a cell phone? Or iPhone? Okay, most of us. Yeah. Have you ever wondered what it took to get to the point where you could look at the pictures on your phone in color? It wasn't too long ago that most of us adults had a flip phone. that only showed 2 colors, right? So technology jumps quickly now. In the past, it didn't jump as fast, and when it did move, when it did change, there were reasons for it that you could track, because that change was slower. So when we think about digging through the past, understanding the rate of that change and its context is really significant. So when we think about especially Hawaiian technology, which are the things I've been showing you so far, these are things that we can look at and apply elsewhere in the world too, right? Whether you're in England, or whether you're in Mexico, we're looking at some of the same kinds of ideas. How did people's practices change, and why, and when? All of these things that we've talked about so far are tools, just like the Legos you folks are going to be working with, just like the code you're going to be working with. It's a tool to achieve a particular means. And while you might not be picking up that tool and cutting it on a tree, you're still going to be having to put together the ideas that make the tool live. When it comes to the museum, a couple of years ago we did these statistics, and these are the kinds of people that came to visit us to learn about the past. Yeah? Have you guys been to Bishop Museum in the past few years? Maybe a few of us, yeah? Some of your faces look familiar, but I'm trying not to look too hard at you. But so when we think about it, Bishop Museum is often thought of just as a museum of the past. And it does focus on archaeology, anthropology, focus on history. But all these people wanting to come through are learning not only about that history in context, but how it applies to them today. So when we think about the museum as a place of learning, right? We may not be able to always show all the collections all the time, but the idea is that if we give you folks a chance to see things, if we provide access to some of those collection objects in Hawaiian Hall, the volcano in the Science Adventure Center, or who's seen the planetarium before, the star shows, yeah? All of those things create different levels of access and more information and more context to learn about the world around us. This is a picture from the 2024 FestPac festival that happened here on Oahu, where we at Bishop Museum and many others had a chance to welcome cousins from around the Pacific. This was a group of about 70 people from Taiwan. Very, very far away. And yet, their culture is very similar to what we have here in Hawaii. They are ancestral to us. And so even though what they're wearing is different, some of their songs sound different, many of our words are the same. Many of our practices are the same. And so this is a reminder, as I go through these last few slides. When we think about places like the museum, archaeology, anthropology, all those things are important. But it's also the people that make the thing important. So when we think about the present, we can think about learning from our past. But the future also lives in our past because we use it as a springboard into the present. Somebody had to invent the way that you guys are going to code your Legos today before you can code it. Somebody had to figure out that you can create these plastic bricks and put them together and make them move before you could do it today. So that in and of itself is a way of digging deeper into that past. And some of that might not be core to your projects as teams, but it's always there because somebody had to come before to set these things up. You could be the person that comes before somebody else to create something, to innovate, to change something, to make it easier, more efficient, more effective, or more accessible. So I leave you guys with this, not only thinking about how we look at our past, but also how will you choose to inspire your future? Not only in First Lego League, but in the other things that your bright futures are going to hold. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. And yeah, we're going to have a great league season.
We're going to open some time up for some questions for Kapaliku. Do any of you guys have any questions for him?
How do you decide what artifacts to put in the Bishop Museum at one time?
That is an amazing question. And I will partly answer that question by showing you some artifacts. So after we're done with the question part, I invite folks that are interested to come up and take a look at some of the things that are brought. But to answer that question, that's a really good one. At Bishop Museum is a combination of things. One, first and foremost, it is what is already part of the Bishop Museum's collections. So for example, we talked about the stone adzes and the fish hooks. The museum probably has over, across the Pacific, probably over 1,500 individual fish hooks that are much bigger than the ones that we saw. If we're deciding what we want to show, we might ask, do we want to show it based on a place? Do we want to show it based on a material, on a size, on a story? And then the collections will work with our exhibits development team and they will put something forward. So that's how you see the things inside Hawaiian Hall. But if the question is about how we collect things, that also depends on what's already in the collections, whether there's room for it, and what significance does it have if the museum becomes a steward of it. So if we have 15 things that are all basically the same and they've been copied, it might not be necessary to collect another one of those. But if we only have one of something, and another thing is available and it can be collected ethically, that would be a consideration for the museum. Yeah? So that's a really good question. It also has a lot to do with space.
Over here at the bottom.
How could you tell if you find an object and that how old is it that it wasn't just made yesterday?
That is a really good question. So, when it comes to dating, radiocarbon dating will tell you about a thing, so you can use that. There are also people in the collections who, because they spent so much time with the historical things, they can recognize the wear patterns. So for example, I'm going to hold this up real quick. Here's a ko'i. This ko'i was made within the last 15 years. If you found this stone out by the beach or out by the river, you'd be able to tell that it's still too smooth. It doesn't have the rounding at the edges that you'd expect from an older tool, and also it's got glue on the bottom. These are things that you can look to and you get context out of it, right? Now, if I threw this into the beach, maybe out Makaha side, and I left it there for 50 years and somebody came across it, they might think it was quite old. That's where radiocarbon dating and other techniques would be useful to help give us a time frame. But some of it is knowing the materials, right? Knowing how they behave, knowing what they do. And also knowing that when a person uses it, what happens to that material, right? So that's all part of the study. That's a really good question. Okay.
What are some archaeological challenges you face at the Bishop Museum?
That's a great question. The biggest one right now is digitization. So when I say digitization is the way that the museum is taking pictures, information, data. It could be things that were written in the 1940s on somebody's napkin and are trying to create a digital version of that, which, how many of you have you guys ever seen old documents with cursive writing on it? Okay. How many of us can write in cursive? Oh, there's a lot of students that can write in cursive. That's surprising. That's awesome. Now I ask that because if you can write in cursive, there's a chance that you can read the cursive that somebody else wrote, right? But if you're not used to that lettering and you try to read a document, it might be really difficult to understand it, yeah? So digitization takes that document, interprets what the text is, and then writes it out in plain letters so that a person can read the record. Believe it or not, again, there's more than 3 million different just ephemera that the archaeology collections have that are field notes, that are pictures, sometimes things written on the backs of napkins because that's all the person had to take that data down, but it's all important. And so when you folks think about taking your information and writing it down, think about too, if somebody else is going to read it, how legible is it? How long will that material last? Did you write it in pen or pencil? And if you digitize it, where is it being stored? So it can be saved for later. Those are many of the things that not only archaeology but other collections at the museum are doing because the process of digitization makes things more accessible. So when we have those records, you guys can look at them. You can look at them online, you don't have to come to the museum to find it. And it also means that researchers from many other parts of the world, just like they were talking about the LEGO projects, can also see that same work. And it allows us to have a bigger, more collected picture of humanity. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking the question. But that's one of the toughest things right now, is being able to digitize everything that we have in the collections. Okay, right over here.
What was your favorite artifact that someone or you found?
Oh, that's tough. I will happily say that I have not had a chance to find any artifacts myself yet. And for one, I feel like that's a good thing. Because for some of us, if we stumble across those things, we are also very conscious of what island we're on, what community we're on. Do we have the right to collect those things? Yeah. In the past, there were folks that worked at Bishop Museum and other places that found things in places that they weren't invited to. And so that's something else that I would just mention. And I don't think You folks don't have to worry about it too much, but there is this idea of ethical collecting, where you have permission, you're given access. It's kind of like if I came to your house and I found something really cool, and then I walked out with it, and they didn't talk to you about it, and then I put it somewhere for everybody else to see and said, I found this. That's how some communities still feel about museum collecting. But the Bishop Museum has moved away from those kind of practices. So, to answer that first question, I haven't collected anything yet. But one of my favorite things, and I'll invite you guys to come and take a look at this in a little bit. It's not this one, but it is a small stone adze. It is even smaller than this. And it was unearthed in a place very, very far away from us in the Austral Islands, Tuboy. And when they brought it to the museum, it stayed in the collections for a long time, and then they did radiocarbon testing on it. That island is even further away from us than Tahiti is. And through that testing, they found that the stone came from Mauna Kea, here in Hawaii. And that is one of my favorite things to think about because it reminds us of how far our Pacific ancestors were traveling. To take stone from Mauna Kea and not Hilo side, not the bay, but up on the mountain, and transform it and take it all the way to the other side of the Pacific. It's such a cool story. But that's one of my favorite things to think about. It's not only what the thing is made out of, where it came from, but how it has traveled and how it comes to places like the museum. Maybe time for a couple more questions, depending on what we'd like to.
Yeah, let's do one more.
One more question. Okay. I'll come over to you.
What ideas do you have to help preserve archaeological sites?
Where are we? Oh, there you go. One more time.
What ideas do you have to help preserve archaeological sites?
That's a great question. So part of that is, in the Pacific, there's a lot of places, okay, so real quick. If you've ever been to a place with a dry desert, there's often a lot of archaeological sites and remains that continue because you don't have the wet. You don't have a lot of microbial activity. So in Hawaii, if you guys have ever seen, if you have wood outside, it rots in the rain, right? If you have materials that are biological, they don't last a long time in the tropics, things break down. So one of the tricks with doing that in a Pacific setting is marking up the site, taking lots of pictures, doing as many measurements as you can in person and in that place, because as soon as you start moving things around, it begins to change, right? Chemistry changes, humidity changes, and especially things made out of wood and fiber, they break down. So if you find things buried in mud or silt, sometimes they've been preserved that way just because they've been underneath those layers. As soon as you take them out, they will begin to degrade. Dr. Tsunoda was very famous for going to Tahiti, and in that bottom picture that you folks saw, he and his researchers, the ladies that are there also working in the museum, they were uncovering a canoe that was about as long as this row. And it was preserved because it had been buried in the sea salt and inundated year after year after year. But as soon as they brought it out, they had to keep it wet because as it started to dry it out, it would crack and break apart. So when we think about preserving sites and materials, it has a lot to do with where it's coming from, but also trying to keep it in those same settings as much as possible. Great question. Okay. One more.
What is your most used material that you found in an artifact?
So can I answer that question in this way? What is the most common material that we see now? Okay, that's a really hard question because there's so many different things that are at the museum. But the things that preserve the longest are things made out of stone. So, like Brother was mentioning, the pohakuku'iai, the pounders, are very common in Hawaii and the Pacific. You sometimes get small adzes. There are also materials made from, do you guys know obsidian? You guys watch Game of Thrones? Okay. Dragon glass, right? Same thing. Obsidian also lasts a really long time because it's volcanic glass, but like the small pieces of stone and the small pieces of bone that make up the fish hooks, you have to look very carefully because those pieces are often really, really chipped and they're only about this big. But if you find them chipped in certain patterns, that's telling you that somebody was using it as a knife or they were using it to cut open a fish. And so that context, along with the material, along with the site, and the practices, gives us a whole picture, or as full of pictures we can get. But thank you folks for your questions. I have a really full picture of how successful you folks are going to be during this season, and I wish you luck. But other than that, I'm going to turn over back to Luana. If folks want to come up and take a look at these things, there will be some time for that, but mahalo.
Thank you so much. Okay. I'm gonna make a couple of announcements, okay? And then you guys can come up and check out this really cool stuff. All right, so first announcement, bathrooms, out the door to the left, down the hallway, going towards the field, okay? There's bathroom signs, okay? Okay? Second announcement, we're gonna start our next activity, so you need to be where you need to be. 10:15, because we're gonna start at 10:15, okay? So, your coach got one of these snazzy little papers. The pink group will stay in this room for the match question and answer. The pink group, okay? And then you'll rotate to the second group, okay? The blue group is gonna start off in the classrooms, okay? Classrooms, you go out the door, go towards the right. You're gonna stay within this huge building, but there's hallways, okay? And we're gonna have some of our alumni group in the back. They're gonna tell you where to go, okay? So there's 3 rooms. There's an A room, a B room, and a C room, okay? And they are all in that hallway towards the right, okay? Third thing, guys, no food or drinks, please, in the classrooms or in this room. You can have your bottles, keep them closed, enjoy your refreshments outside, okay? Last thing, I just wanted to give a shout out. We were invited by Hawaii News Now to feature a team on the news tomorrow morning. It goes on, I think, at 8:15, okay? And one of our teams from Mililani Middle School under the C will be featured on the news with Annalisa, yeah, tomorrow morning. This team represented Hawaii at the WPI this past summer. That is on the East Coast. So they're going to be on the news, so check. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, if you're going to stay in this room for the question and answer, let's try to sit as close as we can to the front, okay, in the middle, okay? For the rest of you guys, thank you so much. Come check out the stuff, okay?
understanding, or are we doing this with the intent of using it for a professional? Okay. Then yeah, we'll have to do it relatively soon.
You might see the instructions with your kids, or you might just get a file of like, you have to look at what you've got.
If there's like a Saturday or Sunday that you're
Whether it's something
I don't know how many Saturdays are.
This is not really
Yeah, bring everybody.
and it's kind of where someone left it.
Maybe we can get like maybe if you bring us what you want to teach it, you might
have everybody. So, like I said earlier, I am Mr. Derek. I am the head rep. Sorry. To wait until. Okay, so while we're trying to get our video up and ready. But again, I am Mr. Derek. I am the state head ref. I will also be the referee, the head referee at Kalani, only Kalani this year. And then we have our other two state head refs, Mr. Chris and Mr. Mark, who will all be head refs at different district tournaments also. And so we're gonna start with the video for the robot game. If you haven't already watched it, it is on YouTube. I would suggest that you watch it as many times as possible.
This is the unearthed competition field. There are 15 missions, which can be done in any order. You do not have to complete all the missions. Just try as many as you can in each 2.5-minute match. Only the score from your best match will be counted. Your robot must start completely inside one of the launch areas, and you should program it to return to either home area. You can handle and modify your robot between runs while it is completely inside either home area. Make sure to read the robot game rulebook to understand how points are scored for each mission and to understand the rules that apply before, during, and after a match. Teams should demonstrate core values at the robot game and will receive a gracious professionalism score at each official match. Teams will start every match with an accomplished score, but developing and exceed scores are also possible depending on the core values a team demonstrates. Equipment inspection. Before the match begins, you will need to pass the pre-match inspection and set all your equipment in place. Your robot and all your equipment must fit in both launch areas and under a height limit of 12 inches. If all your equipment can fit in just one launch area and under this height limit, your team will score points. Mission 1, surface brushing. You'll need special tools to clean and uncover buried artifacts without damaging them. Brush away sediment to uncover a piece of this civilization's past. If soil deposits are completely cleared, touching the mat. If the archaeologist's brush is not touching the dig site. Mission 2, map reveal. Archaeologists work to unearth important clues about how a civilization lived. Shift and remove topsoil to reveal sections of a hidden map. If topsoil sections are completely cleared, Mission 3, Mineshaft Explorer. Ayana the archaeologist is on a mission to discover every secret of the dig site and share what she finds with her team. If your team's minecart is on the opposing team's field, bonus. And if the opposing team's minecart is on your team's field. Mission 4, careful recovery. When parts of a site are too dangerous for humans, technology can be used to safely recover artifacts. If the precious artifact is not touching the mine, if both mine support structures are standing, Mission 5, who lived here? Rebuild the structure to restore a vital part of the village where people once lived. If the structure floor is completely upright, Mission 6, Forge. Ayana's team believes this forge was used to smelt ore and craft tools. Release the ore blocks and search carefully. One block holds a mysterious artifact waiting to be discovered. If ore blocks are not touching the forge, Mission 7, Heavy Lifting. This millstone enabled people to process grain and gives insight into their daily lives. Due to its size, moving this artifact could prove to be a challenge. If the millstone is not touching its base, Mission 8, Silo. Empty the silo of the preserved food so it can be analyzed at the lab. If preserved pieces are outside the silo, Mission 9, What's on sale? Restore the market stall and reveal items that were once traded between the village and its visitors. If the roof is completely raised, if the market wares are raised. Mission 10, Tip the scales. This ancient tool ensured that each item received a fair and balanced price. If the scale is tipped and touching the mat, if the scale pan is completely removed. Mission 11, Angler Artifacts. Your team has discovered some interesting artifacts at the port. Use the crane to excavate the site. If artifacts are raised above the dig site, bonus. And if the crane flag is at least partly lowered. Mission 12, Salvage Operation. An ancient ship discovered at the beach is at risk of further decay. Excavate the vessel without damaging its delicate structure. If the sand is completely cleared, if the ship is completely raised. Mission 13, Statue Rebuild. Reconstruct the statue to help piece together its historic significance. If the statue is completely raised. Mission 14, Forum. Deliver artifacts to the forum. Consider what the artifacts tell you and what mysteries remain. If an artifact is touching the map and is at least partly in the forum. Mission 15, Site Marking. There's so much yet to be discovered at this dig site. Place flags to mark locations for further study. If sites have a flag at least partly inside and touching the map, precision tokens. If you interrupt your robot outside home, you will lose a precision token. Precision tokens left on the field will result in extra points. The less you interrupt your robot outside home, the more points you will keep. Remember to read the robot game rulebook and to check for challenge updates during the season. Good luck with the unearthed robot game.
Okay, so all of the teams should have gotten in with your set, you should have gotten a robot game rulebook. Make sure that this is somewhere next to your table at all times so that you can always go and check. If you're not sure on anything, this is the first thing that you should be checking. Looking at the rules and figuring out if something is allowed or not. Okay, if you look at it and it doesn't say anything, then you're gonna go and check the updates. So that's on the website, and then if still you have a question, missions are worded a certain way so that if it doesn't say something is not allowed specifically in here and not in a later update, then your team is free to try it. One thing that you should have noticed this year is that there are a lot of missions that have that equipment restriction, right? So you're not allowed to leave anything touching the mat, even accidentally. So if somebody falls off your robot and is touching one of the missions and it has that little Lego piece on here, your team will not score points for that. Okay, and so are there any questions about this year's robot game?
Could you just clarify what you just said about the not touching?
Okay, so let's go and find a mission that has it. So mission 1, the brush, it has on the rulebook it'll have a Lego piece with the slash on it, which means that at the end of the match, at the end of the 2.5 minutes, nothing can be touching this piece. None of your equipment. If it is another mission model that's touching it, that's perfectly okay, but it cannot be one of, like something that you built. Maybe you built something to hold this piece up over here, that you cannot do. Do you have any questions about?
Yeah, thank you. My question is, are you allowed in the bot travel in the sort of kind of, for lack of a better word, I think it's the home area, but it's like end zone. Can you travel through the end zone to get to challenges?
Like you're talking about like these
Yes.
back.
Yes.
Oh, so.
Talking to them.
Oh, yes.
So that you can get them.
Okay, so all robots should be launching from these white launch areas over here. Oh, yeah, cool. So these areas over here in the blue and that area over there in the red, and those are the only places where the robots need to start. They can go back into the home area from any point, but they must launch from the white zones.
Where do the site flags start, and can we split them up?
So the site flags start off in base, and then at the beginning, after you do your inspection, you will decide how you want them split up. So maybe all 3 on one side, maybe 2 on one side, and 1 on the other. It's up to you. But that would be done after you would do your initial inspection when you come to the map.
We still lose a precision token after we do the silo, and then maybe our robot hits one of the gears and messes up.
Yes, so anytime you touch the robot and it's not in either of the home areas, you will lose a precision token. And I know it's hard because you're shooting something in the net and it may mess up one of your programs, but that's something that you would have to go ahead and practice.
Are we allowed to move the gears without touching the robot?
Like if it's outside and then it's over here. No, you cannot move these. Yeah, you can't move them after you launch them. If it's on the board, if somehow it happens to land inside of your launch area or home area, then yes. But if it's just anywhere else outside the board, then no.
So the mission with the sand and bolt, does the sand need to be on the board, or can we just push the bolt and then leave where the sand is?
For the mission, for you to get points for the sand part, you would need to pull the lever.
Yeah.
So that the sand is down. If you were to just push the boat up, the sand is still in that area.
Yeah, it's very difficult to push the lever to the sand if the sand is still like there.
If the lever bolt doesn't pull the sand, or the
And so in that case, as referees, we'll probably look at it and give your team the benefit of the doubt because you did the mission as it was supposed to.
When the 2 minutes end, does it have to be back at the home base of the white put? Or can it still be on the mat?
It can still, like when the robot, if the robot say, for example, like over here, and the 2.5 minutes ends, then the referees will stop the robot as it is. It doesn't have to be in the, it doesn't have to be in any home area.
And that is not a loss of precision token. So if your robot is going and maybe there's a few seconds left and you were done, you can leave your robot the way it is. You can even stop your robot and say, I'm done, and not lose a precision token.
Make sure you tell your referees if you just want to stop it and just leave it there.
So what if like you have the robot and you know how you have the artifacts you take and put in a circle? What if you like put the artifacts in like a box that you carry in your robot and you take your robot to the middle? Can you like leave the artifacts touching like the box that you put it in? Or does it not count?
So mission 14 also has the restriction on it. So they would need to be touching the mats and not touching anything, any of your equipment.
Like, I don't know.
You can't load it onto your robot and have the robot still touching it.
And also be careful for situations like, for example, like your topsoil lands like over here on the statue. This does not count as touching the mat. Make sure that your artifacts are touching the mat right here.
Does it still count as between the blue line or the red line and the home if it's like directly on the line?
So if it's like over the line over here, it would count as in home or in the lodge area.
Are there any points deducted for, let's say the bot just crashes into something and moves it out of place or disables it or something like that? Are there any points deducted for that sort of situation?
Generally, the referees will try to catch the robot before major board destruction happens. There is no point deduction or loss, but for example, say if you knock over the silo, most likely the referees are going to take that match piece and you will not have the opportunity to score those points.
Oh, okay. If you have to interrupt the robot and say red side launched it and then interrupt it, can blue side pick it up if it's like a touch and then want to launch from the other side instead? Or does it have to return to the area in which it was launched?
If you have a robot and it moves completely outside the home and it gets stuck right in the middle, then any side can pick it up. I think the exception, yeah, but you can't pass it. Like you cannot intentionally hand it from your red launch zone to your blue launch zone. Right?
Totally, but if it's messed up and it's off course, and then blue side is like, let's just not even relaunch it, we will grab it.
Yes. So if if we're coming out of the red, and they're like, oh, it was supposed to be, the next one was supposed to be in the blue. The blue side can go and grab it and start from that side. We just don't want the red side to grab it and go, oh wait, that wasn't supposed to be us, and then hand it over.
Yeah, I know the chances of this are unlikely, but what if one of the challenges like break? Like, for example, like the first challenge, like it just breaks. Like,
Oh, like the mission models are.
yeah, it's just
Okay. That would be a your referees will be checking the board before every match, making sure everything is working. When you do come up to the board during matches and say notice something is off, make sure you tell your referees beforehand, and so that they can figure everything out, make sure it gets done.
So our job as referees is to make sure that when you come up, everything is working properly. We understand that throughout the course, things happen, robots hit something, like maybe like one of the little gears, and kind of goes out of control, and it may knock off some of the Lego pieces, but your job is to try your best to minimize that amount of damage that happens to the board. If it's breaking every time on your board in practice, it's probably going to break in competition. So those are some of the things that we need to watch out for, like during practice. Are there any other questions?
Here's the last one. When you're launching, if a part of an attachment is a little bit, say, over the wall, does that still count as like eligible to launch? Like say your attachment is behind you, towards the wall where the technicians are.
No,
It's not outside the wood, but it's like over.
So for launch, it has to be in the launch area. So that includes the line, and that's it. So not the wall. But coming back into home, if something goes over the wall when it's coming back, then that's perfectly okay. One other thing before we kind of move on. When you're setting up your table, this piece, if you don't put the dual lock perfectly aligned on the one underneath, this will actually stick to the board, and it will not come out because it will sit on top of the dual lock. So make sure that the dual lock is aligned perfectly so that this becomes a lot easier to pull out.
It's my real last one for real.
Okay.
The crane one, if you are able to lift the thingy up without using the crane, like the red activator, but it's no longer touching the base, like if you just pull the string somehow, does that count?
Yes. So that would count. Not quite sure how you would do that because it doesn't. The gear does need to lock into place, otherwise it'll fall back down. But if you could figure out a way.
I guess you can go like push it off like that. That's but I think it's, yeah, you just can't be touching the inside.
Yes.
From now on, the flag is a little blue thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
This little blue guy over here.
Last 5 minutes. Is there any last questions? Okay, and then I understand. I mean, it is early in the season. I know a lot of teams haven't really started yet on the board. So if there are any questions that come up throughout the season, send us an email. Have the coaches send us an email, and we can answer any questions throughout the season. It's not like this is the only time that we're here to answer questions. I check my emails as often as I can, so I'll answer all the questions that come up throughout the season if you have any. And then actually we finish here in about 5 minutes, and then you're gonna head to the rooms on that side to do the other activity.